Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. And listen carefully because what I'm about to tell you will either change how you show up in relationships forever or keep you stuck in patterns you don't even realize are costing you respect, attraction, music, and emotional control. In the first few seconds of connection, most men think attraction is built on words, compliments, or physical presence. But the truth is far more subtle and far more powerful. Women don't just respond to what you say, they respond to how you make them feel in your presence. Music, especially in moments of intimacy where emotions are heightened and defenses begin to lower. This is where most men lose their edge without even realizing it. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe and like this video if you want more deep psychological insights like this, because what I share here is designed to help you understand dynamics most people never talk about honestly. Now, here's the reality. When you are inside her world, emotionally, mentally, and physically connected, your words carry amplified weight. Not because of what is said, but because of the state she is in while hearing them. At that moment, her mind is scanning for signals of safety, confidence, leadership, and emotional stability. If what she senses is uncertainty, neediness, or inconsistency, her attraction begins to weaken quietly. But if she senses grounded confidence, calm control, and presence without pressure, something deeper activates inside her. This is not about manipulation, it's about alignment. You're not trying to perform, you're demonstrating who you are without over explaining yourself. The men who understand this don't rush, don't overtalk music, and don't seek validation in those moments. They stay present, they lead the energy without forcing it, and that presence alone communicates more than any scripted line ever could. Here's the truth most men miss. Attraction is not just sparked by what you do, it is sustained by what she feels in your absence of insecurity. When you speak from a place of certainty, when your tone is calm, when your intentions feel clear rather than desperate, her mind begins to associate you with something rare. Stability combined with mystery and ear music. And that combination is powerful enough to shift how she perceives not just you, but every other man in comparison. Because once she experiences that level of emotional grounding, everything else starts to feel different. Music, and she may not even understand why. Listen closely because this is where most men misunderstand what is actually happening in her mind during those moments of closeness. When she is physically connected to you, her emotional filters begin to shift and she becomes more aware of subtle signals rather than obvious actions. This is why a calm, grounded presence often feels more attractive than loud confidence music that is forced or exaggerated. At that level, she is not analyzing your words in the same way she would in a normal conversation. Instead, she is responding to emotional cues that are communicated through tone, music, timing, and consistency. If your energy is steady, she music feels safe. If your energy is inconsistent, she feels uncertainty, even if she cannot explain it logically. This is where attraction either deepens or quietly fades. Many men make the mistake of trying to impress in these moments, speaking too much, over explaining, or seeking reassurance without realizing that this disrupts the emotional balance. What she experiences instead is a shift from attraction to evaluation, and that is rarely in your favor. A man who understands this does not try to fill every silence. He allows space to exist naturally music, and in that space, she becomes more aware of her own feelings. And when a woman becomes more aware of her own feelings in your presence, without pressure or confusion, she begins to associate you with emotional clarity. That association is powerful because clarity is something she may not experience often in other interactions. Over time, this becomes part of how she perceives you at a deeper level, not just in the moment, but beyond it. This is why the right presence can influence how she remembers the entire experience afterward. Not because of anything performed, but because of how she felt while she was with you. That feeling becomes the anchor, the reference point her mind returns to when comparing other experiences. And if what she felt with you was calm, certain, and emotionally safe, it sets a standard that is difficult to replace. This is the subtle power most men overlook. Yet, it is often the reason some connections linger far longer in her mind than others. Because in the end, attraction is not only about appearance or effort, it is about emotional imprint you leave behind. in moments when words are secondary and presence speaks the loudest, shaping how she feels after moment ends. What you need to understand next. Music is that consistency of behavior matters far more than intensity of moments. A single strong impression can spark interest, but it is the pattern of how you show up that determines whether that interest grows into deeper emotional attachment. When a woman experiences you as emotionally stable over time, her mind begins to relax around you. That relaxation is not accidental. It is a psychological response to predictability music in your demeanor. Predictability, when it comes from strength rather than boredom, creates a sense of trust. And trust is one of the most powerful drivers of long term attraction. Many men unknowingly create the opposite effect. They fluctuate between extremes, overly attentive one moment, music distant the next, overly expressive, then withdrawn without explanation. From their perspective, this may feel like maintaining mystery, but from her perspective, it creates emotional instability. The human brain is wired to seek patterns, and when those patterns feel unpredictable in a negative way, attraction begins to be replaced by caution. She may not express this directly, but internally, she starts adjusting how much she invests. When you are present with her in intimate moments, your consistency is not just about what you say in that moment, but about what she has experienced from you leading up to it. If your behavior has been grounded, respectful, and aligned over time, she enters those moments already feeling secure in your presence. That security allows her to be more open, more receptive, and more emotionally engaged without resistance. On the other hand, if your behavior has been inconsistent, she may still engage physically, but emotionally, she remains partially guarded, holding back a part of herself. This is why men who focus only on short term techniques often miss the bigger picture. Attraction is not built in isolated moments. It is built through accumulated experiences that shape her perception of who you are. Every interaction either reinforces stability or introduces doubt. And over time, those small impressions compound into a clear emotional conclusion in her mind. When she feels that your presence does not require her to second guess us, when your actions align with your words, and when your energy remains steady regardless of the situation, she begins to experience something that is increasingly rare. That sense of emotional reliability becomes associated with you. And that association influences how she values the connection far beyond surface level attraction, creating depth that cannot be easily replicated elsewhere. Another truth most men overlook is that attraction is deeply influenced by how you handle yourself when you are not trying to prove anything. And EAAE music. In those intimate moments, she is not only paying attention to your actions, but also to whether you appear internally centered or externally dependent on her reactions. A man who is internally centered does not seek constant music feedback, does not rely on approval, and does not adjust his entire emotional state based on how she responds in the moment. Instead, he remains anchored in himself, which creates a quiet but powerful contrast that she can feel without needing it explained. When a woman senses that you are not performing for her validation, something shifts in her perception. She begins to view you as someone who is choosing the interaction rather than needing it. That distinction is critical. Neediness, even when unspoken music, introduces pressure into the dynamic. It can make her feel as though she is responsible for maintaining your emotional stability music, which gradually reduces attraction. On the other hand, when you carry yourself with a sense of inner independence music, she feels freer to be herself without pressure or expectation. This freedom is not just comfortable, it is attractive because in that environment, she does not feel managed, controlled, or emotionally obligated. She feels invited rather than required. And that subtle difference shapes how deeply she can relax into the connection. The more relaxed she feels, the more natural her responses become, and the more genuine the connection feels from her side. You must also understand that silence, when used music correctly, is not awkward. It is powerful. Many men rush to fill every gap with words, thinking they need to maintain engagement. But in reality, comfortable silence communicates confidence. It signals that you are not afraid of stillness, not dependent on constant stimulation, and not insecure about the interaction losing momentum. That calm presence allows her to settle into the moment rather than stay mentally active trying to manage the conversation. Over time, these subtle behaviors accumulate into a clear impression. She begins to associate you with emotional ease rather than emotional chaos. And in a world where many interactions feel rushed, uncertain, or inconsistent music, that sense of ease becomes something she values more than she may consciously realize, quietly influencing her desire to stay connected and present with you. At this point, you need to understand the role of emotional imprint because what she feels during those moments does not stay in the moment. It follows her afterward. The human mind naturally revisits experiences that carried strong emotional signals, especially when those experiences felt different from what she is used to. If her time with you was calm, grounded, and emotionally clear, her memory of you becomes tied to that state. EE music. And when she encounters other men, whether she realizes it or not, she compares those interactions to the standard you established. This comparison is not always conscious. And Na'i music. It happens in the background of her thinking, shaped by how she felt rather than what was said. And A music. If other interactions feel more chaotic, more uncertain, or more emotionally demanding, her mind naturally leans back toward the experience that felt easier and more aligned. This is how a lasting impression forms, not through effort to impress, but through consistency in how you made her feel when it mattered most. However, it is important to be clear about one thing, and IE's music. This is not about trying to control her thoughts or guarantee a specific outcome. Psychology does not work as a script you can follow to produce exact reactions. Instead, it is about understanding patterns of human behavior so you can show up in a way that is authentic, stable, and self aware. When you operate from that place, your interactions become more natural and the connection you build becomes healthier and more sustainable. In intimate moments, your presence should reflect clarity, not confusion. Your energy should communicate that you are comfortable with yourself, comfortable with the situation, and not relying on external validation to feel secure. When she experiences that music, it allows her to relax into her own experience without feeling the need to manage yours. That mutual ease is what deepens connection over time. And here is something many men never consider. She remembers how she felt with you long after the details fade. Not every word, not every action, music, but the emotional atmosphere you created. If that atmosphere was grounded and genuine, it leaves a mark that influences how she views not only you, but the idea of connection itself. This is why developing emotional intelligence, music, self control, and presence is far more impactful than relying on surface level tactics. Because in the end, what truly makes a woman remember you is not what you tried to say. It is the state she music experienced while she was with you and the lasting sense of clarity, calm, and connection that remains with her after the moment has passed. Now let's bring everything together because understanding this without applying it in your daily behavior means nothing will actually change. The men who stand out in relationships are not the ones who chase the hardest or speak the most convincingly. They are the ones who consistently embody the same grounded presence in every interaction. That presence is built through self awareness, emotional control, and the ability to remain centered regardless of how the moment feels. When you carry that into intimate connection, it naturally influences how she experiences you on a deeper level. In those moments, your role is not to perform or to seek a reaction. Your role is to remain fully music present, aware of yourself, and aligned with your intentions. When your mind is not distracted by insecurity or overthinking, your energy becomes stable. And stability is something that is felt, not explained. She may not consciously analyze it, but music, she will experience it through how comfortable, relaxed, and secure she feels in your presence. This is where many men either elevate themselves or unintentionally lower their own value. If you approach those moments with pressure, with a need to impress, or with a subtle fear of losing her interest, that internal state will influence your behavior even in small ways. Tone, pacing, body language, and responsiveness all begin to reflect that inner tension. On the other hand, when you operate from a place of calm assurance, your behavior reflects clarity and control, which naturally draws her in without force. It is also important to respect that attraction is not something you can demand or guarantee. It develops through alignment, not music control. Your responsibility is to show up as your best self, not to manage her reactions. When you release the need to control outcomes, you free yourself to focus on the quality of your presence. And that presence, when genuine, becomes the foundation of deeper connection. If you take one thing from this, let it be this. What makes a woman never look at another man in the same way is not a phrase, not a trick, and not a line. It is the consistent emotional experience she has with you over time. When that experience feels safe, grounded, and real, it creates a standard in her mind that other interactions struggle to match. And that standard is built quietly through how you show up, moment after moment with confidence that does not need to be announced, only lived.